Now, King Charles and Queen Camilla, they were in Scotland this week for their Scottish coronation, but not everyone was happy for them to be there, were they?
No, I mean, people, anti-monarchists are nothing new. Even during the King's coronation back in May, there were protests that were protesting, the very existence of the monarchy. This week, the King has been in Scotland just to receive the Scottish crown jewels as part of the Scottish coronation, and the same sort of hubbub has risen again with his presence being there. There are people that will always not like the existence of the monarchy. I think you never really have Republicans being more than, I suppose, at any given time, more than 20% of the population. But they do exist, and that's the beauty of living in a country where people can express their views. They are allowed to do that. But I think the reality is they know that the overwhelming majority of people still support the monarchy and the institution of the royal family because of all the things that it brings to this country. And I do think we often have to remember that. Sometimes we can get distracted, or it seems like there is more of a fuss than there actually is. But the reality is the overwhelming majority of people are still in support of the royal family.
It feels like there's this continuing angst, I suppose, between Scotland and being part of the Union. Can that subside with anything less than independence? And does the monarchy fuel it in any way?
So the issue of Scottish independence is a very it's a very new invention, and it really over the last few months, especially with the resignation of Nicola Sturgeon, the Scottish independence movement has really had to find its voice once again, and it was really had to do a rebrand. It was effectively playing on a lot of the discontents of people up north. But the reality is, once dynamics change, so do people's feelings. I mean, if you go up to Scotland, you don't really see that much of a difference between other parts of the Union, other than the fact that they have distinct cultural variations. But that doesn't make them separate from the UK. That makes them a part of it. I don't know if the royal family is going to go a long way in remedying that. I would suspect it's more the day-to-day politics and the influential politicians that would probably play a more significant role in that. But the reality is, the King is not just the King of England; he's also the King of Scotland, and the royal family still has its duties and roles to play in that part of the country, and so it'll just keep on keeping on.
Now, let's look back at the coronation, or the lead up to the coronation. And there was so much back and forth about Harry and whether he was going to attend. There hasn't really been much fuss or much discussion at all about him attending, or not attending, rather, the Scottish coronation.
Well, that's not surprising. The Scottish coronation is a far more low-key event. It's not as much of a national celebration as the King's coronation back in May, and for reasons that are understandable. The King's first coronation cost a lot of money. It was a national holiday, and we are in a cost of living crisis. It would be a bit tone deaf for him to have a second coronation at that scale. But it's also understanding the public sentiment. The reality is, and I've said this before, I believe that Prince Harry came for the King's coronation as part of a personal request from the King. I don't think if he had the choice, he would have actually come to the UK. I don't think he's ready to be any part of the royal family, as the royal family is not really ready to take Prince Harry on in any significant way for the foreseeable future. So it's not surprising that Prince Harry didn't attend the King's Scottish coronation. It would have, been a bit of a distraction anyway, and it was a low-key event, and I think we should keep it that way. Anywhere the Sussexes go, there's always, media attention, wanted and unwanted, and I think that the King wanted to keep this as low-key as possible.
Look, it's been a big 12 months or so for the royal family. We had the Queen's Diamond Jubilee, the Queen's funeral and the coronation. And apparently Charles has had to dip into his rainy day stash.
Yes, he has. I mean, apparently the King's budget has gone over by about £5 million this year. Or over the last year, and it's understandable given the increased number of engagements they've had to do, as well as the Queen's funeral, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, the King's coronation. There have been far more public engagements from the royal family in the last 18 months, so obviously costs have reflected that. But the King has made a point of also trying to scale back the royal family. The royal residences have had their heating turned down. I believe the standard temperature now is 19 degrees.